Welcome back, everybody, to the Below Average Joe's MMA podcast, episode number 117. It's Monday, July 12th, 2021, and we're on the come down right now. UFC 264 happened Saturday night, capped off with the trilogy bout between Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor. A lot to talk about from that card. Along with some fight announcements and things like that. But before we get into it, Dominic, how was your weekend? Did you get to watch the fight with some friends? What's going on with you, man?
Yeah, man, it was a good weekend filled with some fights. I mean, what a card it was. We talked about it on Friday from top to bottom, how good it was on paper. And then they went out and delivered on Saturday night with incredible fights through and through. Did get to watch with some buddies for the first time in a couple of weeks, which is always nice to have the gang together for a big pay-per-view. So it was a good weekend, man, and I know you got to spectate those fights as well. What'd you think?
Yeah, this card was awesome. I mean, I obviously I bought the card, and I had people. What was weird is I didn't have many people reaching out to me. When I say people, I mean, a lot of my friends who aren't like very observant UFC fans. They come in they're the casual type fans, if that.
You're their official source.
Yeah, sure. So in the lead up, I didn't really get not a whole lot of people talking to me about it. I had like a couple guys asking for betting advice on it, which I don't know why they take my advice, but it did actually end up working out. I did actually give some good bets
there you go.
for this fight. However, after the fight, I had everybody reaching out to me. People I hadn't spoken to in years. I was rekindling friendships because of this fight.
I love it.
But no, it really shows to me how many takeaways there are from this fight. How controversial. Obviously, we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of all that. But just if this fight felt like a big deal going in, but then coming out, it just feels like it's even bigger almost.
Yeah.
Like the whole story encapsulating that main event and the way it ended, I think it's just it's going to be a long time. It's going to be a long time before it's replicated or before it dies down. I feel like this is going to be a big topic for weeks to come as we wait to hear about the status of McGregor and stuff like that.
Right.
But it was a good weekend. The fights were fantastic. I had a couple people joke with me that they're like, "Oh, you must feel like you wasted money on that fight." And I'm like,
no.
I'm like, when you're like us,
awesome.
We don't buy the fight for one fight. We buy it for the whole card, and that whole card delivered. And really, I thought the main event delivered for the most part, even if the ending went a little limp.
Right.
Not to.
No pun intended.
Anyways, I think now we might as well just hop right into our fight announcements. What do you say?
Let's do it. Not as many as last week, thankfully.
Not as many, but actually quite a bit of for a quick turnaround, there's quite a bit here. October going to be dominating our talk this week, but we actually start with August 7th. Next month's pay-per-view quickly approaching.
Yeah.
UFC 265. We got our first hype package for it on Saturday, so that was pretty cool. But I would say this is going to be our fifth main card fight to round out those five. It might be on the prelims, I don't know. But according to the bout order right now, there's only 4 main card fights.
Yeah,
this one might neatly be placed in there. Rafael Fiziev, I believe is how you pronounce it. This is a scary man.
One of the biggest prospects there is.
Yeah, in that lightweight division, he's terrifying. And he's going up against Bobby King Green, a guy who we have been a big fan of as he's been on a bit of a resurgence, especially during the kind of COVID era of the UFC. He was known as King of the Apex there for a while. He's came back down to earth after losing to like Thiago Moises and stuff like that, but he's still riding that wave right now. I think this is a really good matchup.
Yeah.
But one that I have a hard time seeing the true winning potential for someone like Bobby Green here.
Yeah, it's a good test for Fiziev just because it is a seasoned veteran that's been in there and done that. But Rafael is just so talented and such a great grappler, but also a really good striker. really anyone that wears the headgear to the octagon, like the Dagestani guys,
Yeah.
you're in some trouble if you're fighting them. So It is a tough fight for Bobby Green. But shout out to him for taking on these up-and-comers. And you never know, maybe he can put up a really good fight. But stylistically, again, I think it is a good test for Fiziev to get, a big name, quote-unquote, veteran of the game. So.
Yeah, both guys ranked outside the top 15, I believe. Fiziev's not in the top 15, is he?
No.
He's right there, though. He's right
soon to be, I'd say.
So a win there might jump him over someone on a losing streak, or he'll be matched up top 15 next. Bobby Green, you got to think it's the same thing for him. He has looked really good over the last year for the most part. Even that Moises fight was really close, and now Moises is about to headline a card next week. So it
shows what a win over Bobby could do for Fiziev here.
True, that's true, and I do think that Bobby Green, due to his IQ, due to his experience, could find a way. That's that's usually what happens here. Even if I have a hard time skill-wise seeing Green getting a win over Fiziev, you can never count out a veteran IQ and fight experience, what that can do for someone. It's happened time and time again.
Right.
Following that, we jump all the way to October 2nd. That's going to be the majority of these light heavyweight prospects being matched up against each other. I don't know how I feel about it, but Jimmy Crute, he's being matched up with Jamal Hill. Hopefully both these guys' limbs are back in order in time for the fight. So what do you think of this one? Because I'm a little conflicted.
See, I like it, but I know they're two of the biggest prospects in the weight class, but they are both coming off of losses, wacky losses, by the way. The wobbly ankle from Jimmy Crute against Anthony Smith, and then Jamal Hill's dislocated arm that somehow didn't break. I don't know how, against Paul Craig. Stylistically, too, that fight is just very enticing. It does suck when we see two big-name prospects going against each other so early on, when down the line you could see it as a potential number one contender fight or something in a couple of years. But I don't know, man. I like this. For whatever reason, it's just really exciting.
Yeah, I definitely think on paper it'll be a fun fight. And, whoever gets to win there is going to be probably who the UFC delves probably even more time
deeper into.
Yeah, they're like, all right, this is our guy for light heavyweight right now.
Yeah.
So I get it. Both guys coming off of losses. Jamal Hill suffered the first loss of his career in a pretty brutal fashion, one-sided fashion to the Bear Jew, Paul Craig, so no slouch there. And Jimmy Crute coming off his second loss in the UFC, but one where there was more excuses you could make. Even if Anthony Smith, as great as he looked in that first round, you kind of felt unfulfilled. In a lot of ways, that fight, the way it kind of went, it wasn't as one-sided. How do I word this?
I get where you're going, I think.
I was going to compare it to the main event of Saturday, but I don't want to go any further. I just want to say that, I definitely had those unfulfilled kind of feelings of that fight between Smith and Crute, even though Anthony Smith clearly won the first round, was clearly doing a lot of damage to Jimmy Crute, looked really good. So can't take a win away from him. But for Jimmy Crute, he has the least bad loss that he's coming into the cage with, He has the built-in excuses. I'm not saying he's using them. For Jamal Hill, suffering your first professional loss in the fashion he did, on the stage that he did, can he come back from that? That's going to be a question I'm going to have to see answered.
Right. Good way to put it.
A week later, on October 9th, we might have talked about this on the podcast, but getting the kind of confirmation that this will be a 5-round headliner on October 9th. Mackenzie Dern versus Marina Rodriguez. You got to think this is a title eliminator, right?
Yep, I agree. Yeah.
I mean, we've seen the growth in Mackenzie Dern's game. Obviously, her jiu-jitsu is spectacular.
Next level, yeah.
But even she's become more confident of a striker over the last few fights. For a lot of people, considering her background is in jiu-jitsu, she kind of got unfairly labeled as someone who would be afraid to stand and trade. But she's proved in the Jandiroba fight. And, even in a fight she lost to Amanda Ribas, she proved that, she can stand with the best of them. Now, though, she's going up against another level of striker, Marina Rodriguez. However, Marina Rodriguez's biggest deficiencies have always been when she has someone who can take her to the ground.
Yep.
She's a bit lost when she gets there. I would like to think and hope that over the last year, because the last time we really saw her be put there was against Carla Esparza about a year ago. I would hope that Marina has made some improvements in that area to where at least if she's there, maybe she knows ways to get back up, because it did not go well for her. That's anytime she's lost or had a draw, it's always because her deficiencies on the ground have held her back.
And we saw in her fight most recently with Michelle Watterson, the lone success of the fight for Michelle was when she was able to take Marina down to the ground and hold her there. Outside of that, Marina really did it all on the feet, outside of one moment in the 5th round from Michelle as well. So it's a striker grappler matchup, but it is, in my opinion, a title eliminator as well. 2 women that are really coming into their all right now, into their primes of their careers. It's a huge fight. I love the fact that it's main event. They both are deserving of it. This will be Mackenzie's first main event. Now Rodriguez going on 2 straight main events. I love this matchmaking here. Again, in October, too. Hopefully by then we'll have a fight announcement for Rose and Carla. And then here's your clear-cut number 1 contender after that is what I'm hoping. So it's perfect on all aspects for me.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Also, October 30th. This is the big one.
Mm-hmm.
I believe this is the headliner for that card. We get Khamzat Chimaev, who will be back. And what's crazy is this is going to be about a year since the last time we saw Khamzat in the octagon. A man that fought 3 times in like a month.
Yes.
Has now went a full calendar year
crazy
without fighting. That's the effects of COVID and whatnot have really, really halted Khamzat's momentum. But it's clear once this announcement got made and all the excitement around it, this guy's still going to – if he wins here, he's going to get right back on track.
Oh,
It's not going to be easy. He's going up against the top 15 ranked, the Leech, Li Jingliang. I think this matchup is perfect. It's not one that came to mind. Clearly we've never really pitched this fight. So good on the matchmakers at the UFC for being able to put this fight together. But Jingliang, pretty fresh into the top 15, but we know how good he can be. He's a guy that really does like to bully people in the octagon. He's going up against the biggest new bully on the block, Khamzat Chimaev. So I'm interested in that. I'm also interested in the fact that Jingliang is a very durable fighter. If you beat him, you got to take him all 15 minutes.
Yes, you can't just put him out.
Now you're going 5 rounds with him. You're Khamzat Chimaev, who has really made quick work of his UFC opponents. Who's going to be a benefit to that fight if it gets into rounds 3, 4, 5? Because Khamzat's had a lot of problems with COVID.
Yeah, are there still effects from it,
And then Jingliang, I have no doubt that guy's going to be fucking built for it. So any other thoughts on that fight?
Truthfully, just quickly, this is the type of fight I felt should have been next for Khamzat all along, rather than when they were trying to push him toward Leon. This is the one that would have made more sense. And now that they're doing it, I like that they're pulling it back. It's a good warm-up fight, quote-unquote, but it's not an easy fight at all for Khamzat. It's one that he could still match up well stylistically with Jingliang, but at the same time could very well be tested by far the most he ever has been. Again, 2 perfect matchups back-to-back here. Yeah,
well said. That's going to wrap it up for our fight announcements. And now it's really all UFC 264 talk here for this MMA Weekend Recap. And there's no better way to start than with this main event. This trilogy bout, it ends in controversy. But before we get into really the controversy of it all, Dom, I'm going to lay out kind of the action we saw.
Yes, let's discuss the round.
And then we'll get into it. So, ultimately, Dustin Poirier TKOs Conor McGregor via doctor stoppage. So the round it ends at the end of the first round. So 5 minutes, round 1 is what's credited as the win there. Very quickly, bout starts. Conor does look great early on, and he looks like he's back in his more natural, I guess,
kick heavy
Roddy stance.
Yeah.
Kick heavy for sure, throwing a lot of spinning kicks, and They're landing flush, landing on the body. Good stuff from him early. Once Dustin finds the range, he starts landing some really good combinations of his own. He starts putting some pressure on Conor, and then Conor clinches up. That's when you see what ultimately leads to Conor putting a guillotine on Dustin. That's even though it's in tight with his hands, he doesn't really quite have the leg positioning to secure it. So Dustin, being smart,
walked along the cage,
able to kind of walk along the cage and get to the opposite side of Conor's body to kind of stop that. And ultimately, it was a risk for Conor to do it. Ended up not paying off because for the next 3 minutes,
he was punished
Conor
for it.
Was definitely landing some really nice ground and pound, hard elbows, and this is where I've seen some comparisons to the Khabib fight due to this sequence, and that's fair. I think it really showed maybe that Conor is just not the best fighter when he's having to defend off his back. I mean, he was trying. Don't get me wrong, but he doesn't really. He's not able to really get these guys off of him, and he's not able to really control their posture.
And he couldn't get up either.
So you see for the next 3 minutes, Dustin, for the most part, beating the shit out of Conor. However, Conor does land some nice up kicks. Some of that might have been
elbows.
Some of that might have been due to putting the fingers in the glove, but I digress. So with about less than 20 seconds left in the round, the what I was just talking about, the fingers in the glove, Dustin looks at Herb. He's like, hey, he's putting his fingers in my glove.
And pulling me to the kick.
Yeah, into the up kicks, which could have ended very bad.
Yeah.
So while he's saying that, that allows Conor a chance to stand up. And then they both miss on a right-handed shot. But when they miss, Conor basically breaks his shin at the very bottom, towards the ankle area, and just drops in a heap. Dustin pounces on him, but the round ends. He can't continue, and that's it. So now that I've laid that out for you, Dom, what are your thoughts about, obviously, not the ending that anybody wants?
Yeah.
But what were your thoughts on this one round that we got? And ultimately, the ending itself, how does that factor in to what happens next?
The round so much so reminded me of Oliveira Chandler. That one round of just absolute chaos, man, where both guys have a couple good moments. Again, Conor came out very kick-heavy, like old school Conor, and just like we had mentioned on Friday's episode, he came out with heavy leg kicks, just like he did against Diaz in their rematch. But Dustin, granted, they were landing. None of them were like the hard calf kicks. They were kind of like the OG leg kicks where they'd land on the knee or the thigh. Yeah. So really no damage was too bad to Dustin, no limping or anything that was noticeable. And then, Dustin hurt Conor on the feet. Conor did land one good shot with the hands, a good left cross that caught Dustin. But outside of that, Dustin really got the best of all the boxing exchanges too. Hurt Conor on the feet, which engaged into that clinch that Noah talked about. And from there, it was all Dustin outside of a couple good elbows from the bottom and, the gilly for a few seconds and then the questionable up kicks. But I thought Dustin really looked very well-rounded, very well prepared, and he really put on a great performance. It does suck, obviously, for Conor, whether you love the guy or hate the guy. He's done so much for the sport, clearly, and just what he's done, bringing fans in. So you hate to see it go out like that, even with all the nasty trash talk. You hate to see a guy snap his leg, right? Mm-hmm. But it sucks for Dustin just as much because he was having a great performance on the biggest night of his life, and now there's always going to be a couple question marks. Granted, Noah and I will kind of explain why there's not so many for us, but at the end of the day, there are going to be plenty of people that are like, oh, well, they need to fight again, or Dustin didn't legitimately win. But the one round that we got to see was a clear round win for Dustin, so much so 2 of the 3 judges even scored it a 10-8. Noah, I'll let you go in a little bit more on why we think it is not as questionable for us two necessarily.
Yeah, if you're listening to this or watching this and you're a huge Conor McGregor fan, or you're one of the if you're just in that camp of people that are unsatisfied to the point where you're like, this needs to be run back, this is not the ending that this is not a clear ending, not a definite ending, whatever, that's fine. You're totally entitled to that kind of opinion. And I'm not going to like try to convince anybody otherwise, because there's not really a right answer here. Like, I mean, people can feel however they want to feel. Here's how I'm someone who is unbiased about this fight. I like both guys. Just wanted to see a good fight. From my perspective, I look at it like the ankle break or the shin break, whatever you want to call it, unfortunate. But things do happen in the octagon. And what we got before that was a one round that was clearly in Dustin's favor. Whether you think it was 10-9, 10-8, it doesn't matter. Dustin was clearly winning the majority of that round.
Yeah.
Ankle breaks. Okay, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about what would have happened in round 2 or round 3, because unfortunately the ankle, or I keep saying the ankle.
The tibia.
The shin breaks, and that's it. I mean, that's all you get. The only time that I would take away a win, or in my head be like, oh, that's not a real win, is if you look at like a Chris Weidman versus Uriah Hall fight, where no disrespect to Uriah Hall, but literally Weidman threw the first leg kick of the fight 18 seconds in, shatters his leg, fight over. To me, that's like, okay, that's a win with an asterisk. I mean, sure, it's got to be a win because the fight's over.
Yeah.
But it not really a win that you can hang your hat on. Here, though, you get a whole round that's very clearly goes one way. And if it was a very even first round, then maybe you'd have more of an argument in my eyes. But still, Dustin clearly won this round. Therefore, in my eyes, he won the fight. He won the trilogy.
Yeah.
You move on.
Yes.
But that doesn't appear to be what everybody else is thinking. So, Dom, we know what's next for Dustin. He fights for the lightweight belt against Charles Oliveira. And we can talk about that. But I think we need to start. What do you think about – okay, how do I word this here? So we saw in the post-fight presser, and then a lot of the talk online was there's a lot of people out there thinking this should be ran back a fourth time. No. Well, can you let me finish?
Oh, sorry.
I didn't want you to give away how you felt so quickly.
Sorry.
So they want it to be ran back a fourth time. My question for you is there any scenario where that should be the case, where that will happen? Do you think there is? Do you think that will happen, that this will be ran back a fourth time? And ultimately, do you think it should happen?
I don't think it should happen, but there are scenarios where it could. I truthfully, personally, just have no interest in it anymore, to be honest. This one was really special, the lead up, but it got really ugly. And, I'm okay with trash talk and stuff, but when it gets super ugly, especially towards a guy like Dustin that doesn't really deserve that, it's just uncomfortable for all teams. And, like, Conor didn't make himself look any better either, so you hate that for him. And but there are scenarios. I mean, let's say Dustin goes out, loses to Charles, and, we don't know how long Conor's going to be out. I would have to imagine – I
saw someone say 9 months would be a
anywhere between 9 months to a year. I mean, his bone snapped in half at the end of the day, going through surgery today, the day we're recording this. But, say Poirier were to go out and lose to Charles, then maybe. But at that point, does Dustin really want to continue fighting? Because he's already kind of said how he doesn't really love all this stuff anymore outside of the fight itself. Should he lose to Charles, would he ever be in a circumstance to maybe earn another title fight? I mean, maybe, because he is still at the top of the heap. I truthfully just feel that if Conor were to fight again, there's no rhyme or reason why we can't finally settle the trilogy that people have asked for years between him and Nate. It's just the fight that makes more sense to me. Both guys are coming off of, losses, back-to-back losses at that. And it's just, I have no intrigue in it. I don't think it's as marketable anymore. I mean, obviously, Conor's going to bring in draws no matter what, right? He's Conor McGregor at the end of the day. But I'm not big on the idea of it. Dustin and Charles Oliveira for the title is one of the best feel-good story title fights we'll ever see. I can't wait for that to happen, hopefully by the end of the year. And I can just hope for a speedy recovery to Conor. Should he return, I'll obviously be watching. And even Poirier kind of said in the post-fight too, Yeah, I could see we're going to fight again, whether it's in the octagon or in the street, blah, blah, blah. But should I win the title and Conor comes back, like, he's not just going to jump in and fight me. Like, you're 1-3 at lightweight. You have to at least win 1 or 2 to earn a title fight. So we'll see what happens, man. I think it all comes down to timing at the end of the day. But long story short, that was super long-winded. I have no intrigue in it. I think there's still other fights out there that are big for Conor, and for Dustin, just continue with the legacy and the belts at this point. So,
well said. For me, the 4th fight, to me, I don't care. I'll put it like this. I could sit here and tell you guys that I have no interest in a 4th fight, and that I think, kind of like what you were saying, Dom, like, the lead up wouldn't be as exciting or whatever. But I said a lot of those same things about them running it back immediately a 3rd time, and look what ended up happening. They made it feel like a huge spectacle this week. And the lead up, I really bought into it after being not on board with it after the 2nd fight ended. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, I guess maybe more so now after this one. I just don't see as much from Conor anymore either. I don't know, man.
So just to kind of continue, because it's really not who cares if I'm interested in it or not? Really what matters is, will this fight happen? Where does it fit in? And you're right, timing is going to be a huge factor here, because there's a lot of what ifs, and that'll kind of determine if this fight happens. We'll see how long Conor's going to be out. I know Dom's definitely been on like the end that's like, okay, this could be like a year. I was seeing like 6 to 9 months type range. So, I mean, who knows? But I think that Dustin has to fight for his belt next. He fights Charles Oliveira. If he wins, I don't think you see this fight again in the octagon. Maybe it happens on the street. I don't know.
Right.
But if he loses to Charles Oliveira, then I think that's literally the next fight they do for Dustin. I really do. And he's going to take it because it's a huge payday. And he wants to punish McGregor some more for what he said.
Yeah.
And McGregor wants that back because he's definitely going to be jaded by this experience. I mean, if you really think about it, yes, I know that Conor got a little dirty with the trash talk. But in a lot of ways, this all started because he got called out due to by Dustin publicly for the lack of donation to his charity. That was where all this kind of bad blood started up again.
Yeah. So
in Conor's eyes, he looks at it like, I'm not really the bad guy here. Like, Dustin's the asshole. I'm just defending my honor kind of thing. So really, like, I could see where either one of these guys, like, I know Dustin seems like a really good guy, and I know that you're a pretty big Dustin fan, Dom, so I'm trying to tread lightly on you over there.
You're good, dude.
But I know that, like, nobody, to me, like, even though it kind of felt like Conor was like a villain in this fight, I really never looked at it that way. These are both just guys trying to sell a fight or whatever, and obviously I think the bad blood's real. I mean, I think that was proven after the fight where I was shocked the way Dustin after the fight was. It's like
he was going at him.
Like, sit down, you bitch, and stuff like that. His wife flipped Conor off when they were leaving the cage. Madness. But while Conor's sitting on the ground, he's like, your wife was in my DMs.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, dude.
I don't like it. I hate it, man.
So I think if Dustin loses a title fight to Charles at the end of the year or whatever, I think they run it back a 4th time as the next fight for both men. But if Dustin wins the belt, I don't see Dustin allowing Conor. It's going to be like when Khabib beat Conor and he's like, well, if he can come back and
earn it.
Yeah. And Conor just refuses to kind of play by those rules anymore.
So can I pose you one question?
Sure.
Depending on Conor's comeback and the recovery and everything, and let's say that we don't get Poirier McGregor, is there a fight that sticks out to you that you would like to see Conor fight before it's all said and done for his career?
The Nate Diaz trilogy. I mean, there's really no other fight.
Yeah,
I'm sure there are other fights you could make, but that's
not as big.
That's one where they're both in similar places again.
Yep.
Neither guy should be fighting for a belt right now. They both have had a bit of a skid in their recent bouts. They fight again because it's a trilogy that should have been completed a long time ago, but since Conor, went off and boxed Floyd Mayweather, among other things, you just never really got to see it. Now would be the time to do it. That would be a great fight.
Yeah.
You guys are 1-1. There's another trilogy you can cap off if you want.
And I truthfully, maybe this is a hot take, maybe not. I'll see what you think at least, but I think the McGregor-Diaz trilogy would be bigger than like Conor going to fight Dustin for a fourth time. In my opinion. What are your thoughts? Is it too hot or on the?
I don't think it's too hot. I think it's debatable for sure. Yeah. Like I definitely don't think there's a clear. Maybe for some people they would look at us like we're stupid. I don't know.
Now, if Dustin were to go get the belt and they fought for a belt, that could be a different story.
Let's put it like this. I was surprised the fact that the rematch between Conor and Dustin did more than the rematch between Conor and Nate.
True.
In this trilogy, apparently, I don't know what the numbers are, but Dana said it was trending towards 1.7 to 1.8 million, which would put it second all time.
Yeah.
So because of that, would a fourth fight do better than that? I'd have a hard time seeing it.
Yeah.
But who knows? I didn't think this third fight, and I know it's hard for us to put ourselves back in that January headspace, but we both thought this third fight wasn't going to quite live up when it came to the hype and
it was so much bigger.
And it was so much bigger. So a lot of it depends on the promotional side. But I think a fourth fight you could I saw someone, I think it was Luke Thomas said this. And just imagine they book a fourth fight. Here was what the build-up would be.
Oh, no.
Conor won round one of their first fight. He wins round one of their second fight. Dustin wins round two of their second fight and round one of their third fight. So they're technically still tied.
Gosh.
That is not.
So we did for the fourth fight. We do a 1 round 5-minute fight. That's it. That's all we get.
Yeah, exactly. I saw that and I was dying laughing. I was like, oh my god, that's really what they're gonna do, isn't it?
Let us. I'm going to pose this to our listeners. If you're watching on YouTube or whatever, let us know in the comments or send us in voice messages or a question. What do you think would be bigger for like a comeback fight for Conor? The trilogy with Nate or a fourth fight with Dustin? Let us know.
I'm definitely curious what people would think because in my head I want to say the Diaz trilogy, but you're coming off of. I mean, the second fight with Nate happened in 2016.
But one of the best fights ever.
I agree. But both guys have really kind of went their separate ways. And again, I know if they booked it, they would get right back to where they were back in 2016 to like, fuck you.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't give a fuck. Like all this stuff. And the UFC would do a great job promoting it. So it probably wouldn't be huge. Yeah. But just right now, I have no clear. I think there's more of a built-in story for the trilogy than a fourth fight with Dustin.
I agree.
In my opinion. I don't know.
We digress.
Yeah. So let's move into our next headline here. It's actually not going to be the co-main event. We'll talk about it in a bit. Long live the Shoey, baby.
Why didn't we come prepared and do one for the episode? That's what we should have done.
God. You know what's crazy is I definitely would be the type to do it.
I could definitely see you doing a Shoey. I'm shocked you haven't yet.
I'm definitely a nasty fuck like that to do something like that. However, the Shoey, for those of you that don't know, is when you and I don't know how if you're watching this and you don't know what a Shoey is, where were you last night? Why didn't you?
Yeah, you weren't watching.
Because you pour a beer into a random shoe. It can't be your own. I mean, I guess it can be.
Well, yeah.
But it's supposed to be a random person's shoe.
Yeah, stinky or not.
And then you down it.
Yeah.
And now, once you graduate, and that's white belt shoeys. When you get the black belt shoeys like Tai Tuivasa's got, that's when you start having 50 people, he said, He did a Shoey one time that 50 people spit in.
That's yeah. And then now we're adding extra ingredients. We're putting hot sauce into Shoeys now and stuff too. I mean,
he's patient zero for COVID-19. that's where it started. It wasn't a lab in China or wherever people think it started. It was in Tai Tuivasa's Shoey. Regardless, Tai Tuivasa gets a huge knockout win over Greg Hardy. A minute. I have my phone right here. But it was a minute 7 seconds around number one, I think.
I'll pull it up as you discuss.
Anyways, this fight was quick. It's a minute 7 seconds.
Minute 7. There you go.
Yeah. Nice voice crack.
I was just going to go with it. It's fine.
But this fight was quick, as many like us predicted.
Yeah.
It was violent. It was brutal. It was fun. Tuivasa landing some. He has some very underrated leg kicks.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw those were hurting Greg Hardy immediately, throwing a lot of power behind those kicks. Hardy comes forward, lands a great two-punch combination that rocks Tuivasa pretty bad. Tuivasa takes a couple steps back. Greg comes rushing in, misses with the right hand, I believe, that kind of puts him sideways to Tui. And then, so that way, he doesn't see Tuivasa just throw a crazy left hand over the top, and it just puts the lights out on Greg Hardy.
Stiff, like fell down stiff. It was crazy.
Flash KO'd him because he came right back too, but it was enough to get the win there.
That's 3 in a row now for Tuivasa.
Yeah, this guy started his UFC career on a 3-fight winning streak. Then he went on a 3-fight losing streak.
Yep.
Now he's back with a 3-fight winning streak.
So what's next? A 3-fight losing? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
So this man proceeds to do about 4 Shoeys on his way out. One had Dustin Poirier's hot sauce in it. And he was like, what the fuck?
It was so funny, man. JP, our buddy, was watching with me. He about rolled on the ground laughing. Ty's trying to like wipe it off of his tongue. Yeah. Oh, man.
I feel bad for whoever shoe that was. Like, it's one thing to have to walk around with the
there were 2 more fights left that night. What do you do? Do you put the shoe back on?
Well, you have to, right? I mean, you can't just walk around with one shoe.
I don't know. What happens in Vegas?
It'd be – I mean, I'm sure it sucks. It's like a wet foot, But, like, imagine not just a wet foot, but then there's hot sauce in there. Like, bro.
I would keep that shoe and just put it in a case and never touch it again.
Like, imagine giving some Tai Tuivasa your all-white shoe, and it comes back with some orange shit on it from Dustin Poirier's hot sauce.
Yeah.
Regardless, let's talk about this fight for a little bit because there is some stuff to talk about here. I want to start with the loser, actually, Greg Hardy. We tend to keep the personal stuff off the show, so we're going to continue to do that here. We're just focusing on what happened in the octagon. We get it. Greg Hardy's nobody's favorite fighter. He has not done a great job of in his life of, I guess, making himself a fan favorite, if you will. However, it's obvious that due to his past as a all-pro defensive end in the NFL, that the UFC really wanted to kind of push him and try to capitalize on some of that marketability due to the fact that he's such a great athlete and he was crossing over from a different sport. Now that we're here where he has been knocked out, he's lost 2 straight. I believe he's 4-4 in the UFC. Can we firmly say that this experiment is kind of over, at least in the, and when I say over, I'm not saying Greg Hardy's going to get cut. What I'm saying is putting him in these high placements.
A featured bout, yeah.
Yeah, like, do you feel like that's kind of done for him? Like, is he now just another guy in the machine, or is it just kind of inevitable that, like, due to maybe the amount they're paying him, that they're just going to give him these spots regardless?
I mean, I feel he's a guy that you could still put like on a fight night, like main card, but not like a co-main or like a main event. And, should he go on a win streak, then he could easily get right back into the featured bouts on pay-per-views or a ranked fighter or whatever. But right now, I mean, he still wants to build on his career, it seems, and he wants to stick with it. So, just handing fights that are good. I mean, I thought this was a good stylistic fight. So, I mean, more fights like this, not necessarily like huge names or guys that are ranked, and just keep feeding him some fights, get him experience. If he goes on a win streak, he does, and if not, then it'll eventually fade out at the end of the day. But I think it is clear he's not going to beat some crossover superstar anytime soon that maybe they originally thought after his performances on the Contender Series. So
yeah, I don't want to quite count him out. I mean, the guy is such a good athlete, and the fact that he's came so far so quickly.
Yes,
this is weird. We're probably the only people that are going to really give Greg Hardy
a little bit of respect there.
Yeah, because I think he deserves it. I mean, the guy, by all accounts, people around him, the guy has taken his transition to MMA very seriously.
Yeah.
I think that shows. Not only is he a great athlete, but his stand-up has usually looked very good. I mean, here he got pretty carried away because he hurt.
He did hurt Tai
on the feet, but rushed in, got caught.
Yeah.
However, for the most part, his stand-up has looked really good, very powerful. It's just his ground game's weak, and his cardio is weak. So we just got to – I mean, over time, he can definitely get better at those aspects and make – I mean, I don't want to even count him out and say, this guy could be a top 15 heavyweight. He could be a top 10 heavyweight. It's just going to take time.
Exactly.
And I just don't know if they're really doing him any favors by giving him so much kind of – there's been so many eyes on all these Greg Hardy fights that
just let the guy fight.
It's kind of like he just needs some time to I mean, this guy had maybe one fight outside the UFC.
Yeah, that's it. Literally it.
I mean, this guy's really a novice trying to figure it out,
Yeah.
But for Tuivasa, top 15's got to be next, right?
100%. 100%.
And I don't really have a name in mind. I'm happy for Tai Tuivasa. He's one of my favorite guys in this heavyweight division. Guys like him and Andrei Arlovsky are my boys. And for Tuivasa, a year ago, I don't remember if it was him or his manager, but someone in his camp basically came out and confirmed that he had been released from the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
That turned out to not be true, so I'm not sure what happened there. But the UFC gives him, after being off for a year after that 3-fight skid, they gave him a fight at UFC 254 against Stefan Struve, who was a veteran in his own right, a guy who'd been there, done that. Tuivasa gets a huge KO, and he gets put up with Harry Hunsucker out of Kentucky. Shout out Kentucky.
Shout out Kentucky.
Knocks out Hunsucker, and then here gets another big knockout of Greg Hardy. It's nice to see that Tuivasa's kind of back. He's such an exciting guy, and he has such a good connection, positive connection with the fans, the Shoeys. Everybody loves them. So I just want to see. I want to see this guy keep going.
Can I throw one at you?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on a guy like Walt Harris, who's on a skid, going back, and Tai gets an opportunity to fight up like that? One that would kind of make sense, or is that too mean to Walt Harris? Because I think that's still a fight Walt could win.
I mean, what else? If Walt Harris wants to continue to fight, I mean, what else are you gonna do?
It's that type of fight, and it's a big fight. Everybody watches Tai Tuivasa.
Don't get me wrong. Could Walt Harris could slap? Sure, but he could also hurt. Yeah. He's quite the athlete himself.
Every one of Walt's finishes have been by have been by KO. So
I mean, it's the appropriate step back for Walt Harris, but also it's the appropriate step forward for Tuivasa right now. I don't know how far Tuivasa can take the skill set he has. He's got some deadly power, great underrated leg kicks. That's definitely something that I think people are going to have to figure out here soon about him. But, not a guy that loves the ground game.
Yeah, right.
Also probably doesn't have the best cardio in the world. So I don't know if I necessarily see this guy ever contending for a title, but I want to find out. I'm going to be on his team every step of the way because he's too fun. He really does have that kind of that quality that you look for in a star. So
I agree.
Loved that fight. I literally put on my Snapchat. I took a picture.
I remember
of the banner when it had the pre-fight graphic, and I said, and this is no disrespect to Greg Hardy. I just said it because I love Tai Tuivasa. I said, I need a Tuivasa win plus Shoey right now, or else I'm gonna riot. And then
you got
even. And then literally a few minutes, not even a minute later, I'm sitting there fuck yeah, like you won. And he gets up on the cage and starts doing this. And I'm like fumbling my phone. I'm like, I got to take a video of this.
It was like Stone Cold on the top of the ring doing his beers. That's what it was like.
Yeah, so very fun stuff there. But let's get into our last headline here, and that's going to be Sean O'Malley and Kris Moutinho ended up having a bit of a fight of the night type banger here.
It was nuts.
We call it, the headline says, the real life Rocky Balboa. That's going to be really the headline here is, Sean O'Malley TKO's Kris Moutinho in round 3, 4 minutes, 33 seconds in. But the story here was all Moutinho.
What a tough son of a bitch.
Takes this fight on 1 week notice, making his UFC debut, quit his job for this fight. And he nearly goes the distance after taking a historical beating.
Yeah. Yes.
And just kept coming back.
Like a zombie.
Yeah, I mean, kept green-haired zombie, man.
Yes, yes.
People were calling him green-haired.
That's what Joe Rogan said on the commentary.
This guy, it was obvious this was a mismatch, and I'm not going to blame the UFC or Sean O'Malley for putting this fight together.
Right. We talked about this.
This is a kid willing to step up for 135 pounds on a week's notice.
Yeah.
Deal with it, fucking losers. Like, just deal with it. God, I'm so annoyed. Anyways, this fight was great, and it was very one-sided, but Moutinho just kept coming forward. And by the end of the second round, man,
I was tiring Sean. Yeah.
Sean looked pretty gassed. Like, he was like, dude, okay, this guy will not go away.
Yeah.
He's like, I regret dribbling the basketball in the first round,
Yeah.
But then round 3, Sean came out and probably had his best round of the fight.
Yeah, it looked so good.
So honestly, I do think there's some positive takeaways if you're Sean O'Malley here. But Moutinho earned himself a contract.
Oh.
Give that man. He got a $75K bonus for fight of the night, so shout out to him for that. They said he had a previous fights at flyweight. I actually would like to see him go down. And
Sean looked way bigger, didn't he?
Yeah, so I would definitely like to see that. But if not, I'm sure Sean's kind of a big bantamweight, tall, lanky bantamweight in general. But Moutinho did look quite a bit smaller here, so I'd like to see him at flyweight. What were your thoughts on this fight, Dom? And I know you didn't agree with it being fight of the night, but kind of what overall, what did you think of this performance and where they go from here?
Well, Sean O'Malley, no matter, you can't say, oh, he's just fighting some guy making his debut. You know how hard that probably is still to put on a performance like he did? He landed, 80+% of his strikes?
It was over 80% of his strikes.
Over 220 strikes he landed. It was nuts.
It was
his
a record.
Output, his accuracy. Yeah, it was a record.
The most in a 3-round fight ever.
Yeah, absolutely nuts. So it was a great performance by Sean, and it's more so discredit to Kris Moutinho, the green-haired zombie, couldn't be put away. Even when the fight was stopped by Herb Dean, he was on his feet, and Herb said, this is enough. I can't see any more strikes that landed. I could see it going either way. I was upset in the moment because I was like, oh, there's just 20 seconds left. Let him keep going. But then I was like, okay, I get it. I get it why you stopped it at the same time. So I'm on the fence either way. Do with that what you will. You can't take anything away from Kris Moutinho. He couldn't have had a better debut outside of taking less damage and getting a win. He proved everyone how tough he is, how big his heart is, and that he truthfully does have some decent strikes. I mean, he landed on Sean some good right hooks as he was moving. So imagine the guy on a full camp. He definitely earned a contract, another fight, another main card fight, for God's sake. Keep him on a main card of a fight night or something. But Sean O'Malley stole the show as usual. People tune in to watch him fight, and he put it on display again. His striking is, dare I say, next level for this bantamweight division. It's special.
I like that, man. I definitely agree that 80% clip. I mean,
That's nuts.
People are going to discredit Sean O'Malley for this fight, and I disagree completely.
Yeah.
I just want to get out in front on that. I didn't see it too much last night, but it's going to be there because we knew this is a bit of a mismatch. So, of course, people think because of that, Sean O'Malley should be able to get this guy out of there in a 1 round. But nobody knew the kind of chin this kid had, and obviously he's coming in here looking for his big break. So that adds some heart to it. And Sean's trying to put on a really good performance, and he does, landing at an extraordinary clip, puts it on this kid.
Many other people would have been finished.
Yeah,
no doubt.
I mean, the only chink in the armor that you saw for Sean was that he just looked like he was gassing a little bit.
Yeah.
Due to being on his bike the whole fight.
Yeah, he was constantly on his.
But that's pretty much what's going to happen for any guy in that same situation.
Yeah.
Obviously, Moutinho did not have much striking defense here. He didn't necessarily land too many great shots. I thought the stoppage was very justified. I thought that fight could have been stopped a round to get before it.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I think the stoppage was very just in that moment, and a lot of people, there's a lot of people shit on Herb Dean for stopping fights too late.
Damned if he does, damned if he don't, man.
Come on, man. Pick a side, people. But in this situation, I thought it was completely justified because in the lead up to the stoppage, Sean did land a nasty 5 or 6 piece combination that was not blocked at all.
All unanswered,
And I mean, Moutinho literally looked like he was out on his feet. Don't get me wrong. Would the kid probably have made it through the next 27 seconds? I think it started with almost like a Muay Thai knee.
There was a knee, a bad one.
And Moutinho got real wobbly off of it. And then Sean landing a few shots to the face, and none of them were blocked. So then I was like, okay, you can stop it.
Right.
And people, I get it. We all bought in the kind of the story, like the Rocky Balboa, as I literally put in the headline here. This kid's going to make it. Be honest with yourselves, people. That kid had already
took a beating.
Took a historical beating, but he had already proven himself there. Those next 27 seconds don't fucking matter.
Yeah.
The kid earned himself more fights in the UFC. He earned
a big paycheck.
The respect of Sean O'Malley, the respect of the fans. Those next 27 seconds, I'm sure it might have been something for him, maybe like a slight badge of honor for him. Say I went the distance with Sean O'Malley. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You proved your point.
You more than proved it. Yeah,
he didn't need to take any more damage. There was no way he was winning that fight.
Right.
In those last 27 seconds. So that's my thoughts on the stoppage. I thought it was completely justified. And typically I'm someone that kind of goes the other way on a lot of those. I tend to, if a guy's not out, I tend to kind of be like, oh, they probably should have let it keep going. But this kid's chin was one of the best displays of taking shots I've seen in a long time.
Crazy.
So any final thoughts on that one?
No, it's time for Sean O'Malley to get a top fighter. That's all.
Yeah, that's definitely he had a lot of call outs here. He called out about 4 different fighters. He called out Peter Yan,
obviously,
Rob Font, Cody Garbrandt, and Dominic Cruz. Cody Garbrandt, as was confirmed by John Morgan and Ali Abdelaziz, he's moving down to flyweight. Apparently, he's got a fight already committed to for flyweight for some time later this year. So that fight's out, even though that probably would be the most likely one of the 4 to happen. Yeah. Then you got Font, who's a top 5 bantamweight.
That ain't happening.
That's not going to happen. And Peter Yan should still be champion. That's not going to happen. So you got Dominic Cruz, which is an interesting one.
It is intriguing.
I would love to see that fight stylistically, but Dominic Cruz turned down a call out from Chito Vera.
Yeah, he wants to fight up.
Because he wants to fight up. And Sean O'Malley's outside the top 15. So
yeah,
I think Sean O'Malley maybe in a way wasted those call outs. I don't know. I would like to see him fight a guy like Ricky Simone next or something like that. But
I still would love to see that fight. I will say Ali Abdelaziz, obviously one of the biggest managers in the game, came out and tweeted Frankie wants that fight. Frankie Edgar and Sean O'Malley. So
that's the fight.
That would be huge. Sean's definitely not going to turn that down. And Frankie, we talked about this off recording. He's been counted out time and time again. He welcomed or gave Yair Rodriguez at featherweight his first big challenge, and he absolutely pummeled Yair Rodriguez. So you never know what could happen there. It is a fun fight. Frankie's as tough as they come, and that would obviously be everything that Sean wants in terms of a name and a ranking. So
could you imagine that 5-round main event?
Definitely have to do O'Malley on a main event, especially if it's Frankie
That would
Edgar.
Be an amazing fight.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Because really, you could still look at Frankie Edgar when he fought Yair Rodriguez. That was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And a lot's changed for Frankie since then. But what he was best at in that Yair Rodriguez fight was when he got that fight to the ground. He kind of bullied Yair in the cage.
And that's where people want to see Sean tested.
Yeah, and Frankie still has that.
Yeah.
Even if his chin is softened up and he can't quite take the punches anymore, the guy still has that kind of grinder, bully bit in the cage mentality. And I would be interested to see how that fight would go.
Yeah.
And for Sean, you got to think, this is a guy who's been knocked out a couple times in the last few years, pretty brutally.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to be like, and it's a huge name, former champion. It's a great name to add to your resume.
Sean will come out and do something wild for sure.
Yeah. For sure. So let's get into the rest of this card because, man, a lot of fights that we could have put on here that we didn't. But we'll start with the co-main event because I skipped it for the headlines. I felt like the 3 fights we talked about were more noteworthy.
Yeah.
This fight, though, I didn't think it was too bad. It was fine.
Mm-mm.
Gilbert Burns gets a unanimous decision win over Stephen Thompson. And unfortunately for Gilbert, the fact that he won is why it wasn't a headline. Because really, this is just a win to get Burns back on track.
Yeah.
It wasn't a particularly exciting fight. I thought it was fine. Burns did what he had to do. He got the fight to the ground, which was surprising.
No easy task.
Right.
Yeah.
This fight, obviously, there was a lot riding on this fight for Stephen Thompson, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But we'll start with Gilbert Burns. Good win for him. But due to the fans' relative, I guess, disinterest in this fight, and really even Dana White said afterward, like, yeah, that fight sucked, Did Gilbert Burns really make up any ground here in terms of a maybe future rematch with Kamaru Usman? Because I really think that he kind of just held – it was kind of a stagnant – like he just held his ground.
Yeah, that's what it felt like to me. I mean, he's still 1 or 2 more wins away from another title shot for sure, especially with how he lost to Kamaru.
Even though, he did give Kamaru a good run for his money, and I'm tired of hearing people say he got dominated. It's not accurate, but
yeah.
I agree with you. I think he's at least 2 fights away from.
Yeah, and I do think he had a really good call out though. Not a fight that's probably likely to happen, but Jorge was in the building and acknowledged him, and he called out Masvidal. I don't hate it at all. I mean, if you're Burns, what do you have to lose by calling out him? So I do like the call out. Nevertheless, he's still a top level elite welterweight. We do know that it's no easy task to take Wonderboy down, and he managed to do that 2 of the 3 rounds. It was a close fight. I had it 1-1 going into the 3rd. Wonderboy rocked Gilbert in that 3rd round. Very good, but Gilbert was able to withstand and get the takedown and grind it out. So hats off to Gilbert for getting back into the win column, but still, again, a couple wins from another title fight. But I don't doubt he can get those wins. But I guess we should talk about Wonderboy now, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, though, in the lead-up, this fight was being really overlooked on this card. I mean,
yeah, isn't that crazy?
It's the co-main event. I mean, I know all the hype was really on that main event, but it felt like, I mean, even like the Sean O'Malley fight, it felt like was being given a little bit more shine. Just fight. I mean, it was a very high-level fight, but both guys that didn't have any bad blood for one another, both just really nice guys. And ultimately that carried over to the cage, and the way the fight went, it really just felt like this is going to be a fight that's kind of forgotten for a lot of people.
Probably will.
And a lot of it comes down to the fact that Gilbert Burns won because we knew what was riding on this fight for Stephen Thompson.
Yep.
A win here could have put him in line for a title shot. Before the fight, I would have gone as far to say it would have. But in retrospect, now that the fight's occurred, if that fight had gone basically the way it did, but maybe Gilbert Burns doesn't get a takedown in the 3rd round, Stephen wins the round or whatever. But otherwise, just a kind of whatever fight. Do you think Stephen Thompson would have even been able to get a title shot off of that? Because it was, I mean, it was an okay fight, but nothing really, nothing that anybody's really going to remember in a week from now.
I feel like he maybe could have done enough to earn it, but not hop over like a Colby or Lee gun, if that makes sense. So he would have been waiting a while,
See, I didn't think I really didn't think there was a chance for him to leap anybody regardless. Maybe Leon, because Poor Leon just can't
poor guy.
catch a break. But all right, Stephen Thompson, he loses here. I think that shuts the door on any kind of title
shots. Yeah.
But what is next for him? Because he no retirement talk. He's obviously still wanting to fight. Doesn't want to be a gatekeeper. Who do you put with him next?
Bilal Muhammad. That's what I would do. Bilal coming off the win against Damian Maia. Not the most exciting fight there, but still a guy with a decent following. He's in the top 10. He's trying to work his way up. And I just don't think there's any other matchups you could do for Thompson. I mean, he's already beaten Masvidal. I don't think that fight makes any sense, and Masvidal's too big of a draw. Luque and Chiesa are fighting one another. Maybe Neil Magny, but I think a bigger name right now with more momentum would be Bilal. A prospect, again, with a big name, would be a relatively good test for Thompson. I don't see him retiring. Like you said, it seems like he still has that fire. He did say he doesn't want to be a gatekeeper, but that's kind of the position he's found himself in now after losing. So,
I hate the Bilal Muhammad fight. I'm gonna be honest. You know what? I feel kind of bad. I feel like I'm just gonna hate any fight that has Bilal Muhammad in it. I'm just
I understand.
Here we go. But no disrespect, Bilal, you're great. You seem like a great guy. But I actually think the fight that makes the most sense is the Jorge Masvidal fight, and here's why. I get it. Masvidal is a big draw, and Stephen Thompson's not really that. But Masvidal said that he wants that win back.
True.
He wants it back. And I know that there was a lot of when he was talking about beating Kamaru Usman, and that he said his first defense would have either been Nate Diaz or Stephen Thompson.
Yeah.
That says a lot to me that he wants the Stephen Thompson fight where he can get that win back.
It's a good point.
I think now would be a good time for those two to run it back. I know that Masvidal is a big name, but let's be honest, over the past year, has he really done anything to keep that superstardom
or make it any bigger? Yeah.
I don't think it's gotten any bigger. And maybe it hasn't dropped off necessarily, but maybe it has.
So do you just co-main a pay-per-view with them probably?
You either co-main or you give them their own fight night. Probably co-main a pay-per-view.
I was going to say Jorge's still maybe too big for a fight night headliner.
Maybe I'm overlooking a stardom still. I just feel like ever since the Diaz fight, after that, it just feels like he's not really done anything or after Fight Island, I should say.
Right.
He's not really done anything you're only as good as your last performance, and it feels like, he hasn't really done a whole lot to keep himself relevant with fans and stuff. Regardless, that's the fight I want to see. I know it might not make sense to you, but to me, I feel like there's reason for it to happen due to Masvidal seems very picky about what fights he's going to take. It has a storyline built in where Masvidal wants it back. He wants that win back. It's a loss that he feels like he's grown a lot since and can kind of come back from it.
Right.
So for that reason, I think it'd be a fun fight. And neither guy going to be fighting for a belt, but they can make some good money together.
Fair play. I don't hate it at all.
Following that one, we're going to go to our prelims. Your
prelims were banging.
Your fight of the night pick. Michelle Pereira gets that unanimous decision win over Nico Price. This fight was nuts. Did anybody think anything? It was going to be anything different?
It was.
This fight was awesome. It was really fun. I wasn't scoring the rounds like I usually do. So were you surprised that Pereira got the win? Because I actually, in my head, I was like, based on the way that fight was going, I almost thought Nico was going to get the win there. But
I can't remember what I had it scored, but Michelle had the bigger moments and hurt Nico badly, first and second round. But then as the second round was coming to a close, Nico started to come on. And then the third round, Nico was going off. The sense of urgency to get the finish was there, and he was hurting Pereira, and he just never whimpered. Neither one of these guys. You literally have to put them to sleep, or you're going to just have to grind out a decision against them because they're not just going to go down easy for you. It lived up to all the hype. Everyone expected it to be this crazy, and it was. Of course, Michelle gets the win on the judges' scorecards, but neither guy's stock goes down. I think they both go up, truthfully. And I will say, now Pereira's gas tank is still questionable, but seeing him be more patient these last couple fights, you see some more potential, So, and I still think he's a massive welterweight, by the way. This dude could easily be a middleweight. He is huge. I don't know how he makes 170 pounds.
I don't know how he does it.
Because he was definitely 200 pounds last night, easily.
Yeah.
But I do like seeing more patience out of him. This is a guy that's still like 28 years old, but has like 37 fights or something crazy.
He's the oldest looking 28-year-old I've ever seen.
It's crazy. So seeing more patience out of him is exciting because you're always going to be in a fun fight with him regardless. And he only did one flip last night, which is cool. It was a very crazy flip. His foot landed on Nico's face. Is that illegal? I don't know, but I liked it. So they're always in fun fights. This fight lived up to everything. What'd you think, man?
It was definitely illegal. Let's be clear. That was definitely illegal.
I mean, that's a stomp, right?
Yeah, it's. I saw even Nico's like, "What the fuck?" Like looking at the ref, and the ref didn't do anything. I'm like, okay, well, apparently this is a way to counteract those rules. It's just to flip onto your opponent. Yeah, it really was everything I thought it was going to be, and I hate to say that, like as if that like these guys deserve immense credit because they were expected to put on one of the most fun fights of the night, and they did.
Yeah.
You don't see – a lot of times those fights don't live up. And I really was in my head trying to reserve my expectations because you saw Pereira in his previous outing with Chaos Williams. That more smarter approach led to less fireworks in that fight.
Right.
Pereira he definitely looked to be playing it safer. I don't know what I'm trying to get at with that one, but here Nico definitely brought out the wild man in Pereira a little bit more, and it was a really fun fight. But yes, you're right. Pereira did fight with his head on, outside of like doing flips. I mean,
right.
That's the only part.
The Superman punch off the cage. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can only take so much of the wild man out of Pereira, but he was lured right back into it.
Yeah,
it was fun. I for both guys, they're always going to be in fun fights, so should have no problem getting matched up with
another fun fight.
Yeah, exactly. A little lower on the card. Aaliyah Tuivasa gets the knockout of Ryan Hall, 4 minutes, 47 seconds of round number 1.
The kid's a problem.
I had been wondering when this day would come, and it came.
Yeah.
A lot of people might not agree with me on this, but I look at this like we finally saw someone expose Ryan Hall. When I say finally, I don't mean like I've been hoping.
Waiting, yeah.
I just mean like I knew Ryan Hall had a very limited but elite skill set.
Yes.
And every fight, those rules are like that's what he does. He kind of refuses to stand and trade. I saw someone say that he takes advantage of the fact that the UFC doesn't allow soccer kicks.
True.
But for people watching, and you saw it in the octagon, he started getting booed a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a very confusing style to watch.
It was crazy.
But it always looked so out there that you're like, this can't be that successful, right? Like there's got to be a limit to this. But we yet to see it. He looked incredible against BJ Penn, Darren Elkins, among others. Here against Tuivasa was a huge test for both of them. Tuivasa 10-0 coming in, looking like the future of the sport.
Yeah.
Ryan Hall, 36, but the fans have really bought into him as like this dark horse, like guy who could maybe beat anybody in the division. And Tuivasa just kind of shut
that shit down.
Yeah. This was not the best look for Ryan Hall here. He did, I think, 14, count them, Imanari rules or whatever.
I've not rolled that much in 23 years of life on Earth.
And I think maybe one of them was somewhat successful. But Tuivasa just was very composed, didn't get
very impressive.
Didn't get overzealous, and once he was able to land those shots, he took. It didn't take many to put
him
Ryan
to sleep.
Hall out.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts?
Well, Tuivasa, for being a 24-year-old kid and being able to evade and get out of those rolls and keep it on the feet, I was very, very impressed with Ilya, seeing him just stay composed. And when he found the opportunities to land shots, he didn't shy away from them, and he took them, but was able to, again, evade, get out of the submissions, get out of the leg locks. I was very impressed by him. He's 11-0 now. I think all of his wins are via finish. This kid needs a top 15 opponent, I think, in the featherweight division. Nice. I know. Could be a hot take, but arguably he just fought one anyway last night that didn't have a number. I know people are going to be like, well, he didn't fight like a ranked fighter. I get it, but Ryan Hall before that was essentially ranked.
Is Cub Swanson ranked?
I think he is tied for 15th. That would be a sick fight.
There you go. Cub Swanson.
That'd be a really good fight.
I wouldn't be upset by it because Tuivasa does look like he's going to be the future of this division of the sport. I mean, the guy's just so well-rounded.
Buzzsaw, yeah.
I honestly thought Ryan Hall might win this fight just because, you're not going to see a fighter like Ryan Hall again after he retires. I mean, it's so hard to fight him because he's willing to take the fight to those areas that most people might find they might have too much pride to just roll around and kind of hide from the punches and stuff.
He just doesn't care.
He doesn't. He recognizes look at me. I look like I work at Best Buy or something.
It randomly threw in 5 spinning wheel kicks, by the way, randomly.
Yeah, he's really good. He's not completely out of his element on the feet. It's just he recognizes where he's going to win a fight at.
Exactly.
Tries everything he can to get it there, and it's very weird to watch if you're someone who's.
If you were new on Saturday night, you were like, "What the?"
And you can tell the fans in the arena booing the shit out of him too.
Yeah.
I definitely think Tuivasa top 15.
Makes sense. He's a stud, man. Bright future.
Last one here that opened up our prelims, not the early prelims, but Dricus du Plessis.
Wow.
KOs Trevin Giles in round 2, 1:41 in.
What a fight.
This was the battle of prospects.
Mm-hmm.
Giles looked great early.
Yeah, he did.
I like Giles' movement a lot. Keeps his hands a little low, but I always like it when guys can do that effectively, where they can use their movement to get it to evade shots rather than having to kind of turtle up. Because du Plessis was the opposite. He was coming in, has that kickboxing background, so he came in with the box defense going on there. And early Giles looked good, but I don't really – actually, I'm kind of having a hard time recalling the action in this fight, but I remember –
Well, Drake's utilized good grappling in the first round too.
Thank you. That's where I was because Giles' one kind of blemish throughout his UFC career has been when a fight gets taken to the ground.
Yep.
New du Plessis coming in has a great kickboxing background, but underrated grappling as well, has finished many of his UFC fights by submission. Gets the fight there. That's ultimately how he wins the round. And then the second round, you kind of think that's going to be the same. Maybe Giles has the advantage on the feet.
Yeah.
Du Plessis has the advantage on the ground.
Oof. Ooh.
A shot that nobody saw coming. Nobody saw it coming. Put Giles out.
Brutal knockout.
And I still think both guys may one day be fighting for titles, but as I kind of thought, I thought du Plessis had maybe just a slightly higher ceiling, and he showed it here, man. A complete performance out of him. Showed the grappling, showed the ability on the feet, and gets a nice highlight reel KO win. I'm ready to see this guy fight, Tom.
I completely agree with you. I was about to say this time next year, we'd be talking a top 10 contender for Dricus. He really is well-rounded, carries power, but good grappling. And Trevin Giles ain't going nowhere either, like you mentioned. Still a high ceiling for him, but right now, where we're currently sitting, Dricus is just a little bit ahead.
Yep. Great fight, though. Any other fights you want to touch on before we wrap this thing up?
No, I mean, not really. There were obviously a plethora of good fights. Max Griffin beat Carlos Condit. Jennifer Maia beat Jessica Ai, but nothing huge in terms of takeaways or anything.
Aldana got a nice
Aldana looked great. Unfortunately, missed weight, or we would have probably talked about it a little more, but she looked damn good against Yana because I picked Yana going into that fight, and Irene didn't even get touched. So shout out to Aldana as well.
Yeah, but that's going to wrap it up for the MMA Weekend Recap. Thank you all for joining us for today's episode. Let us know your thoughts by leaving a voice message or by commenting on our social medias or on YouTube channel, whatever. Let us know your thoughts from Saturday's fight. Answer Dom's question about will the Poirier-McGregor fourth fight or a McGregor-Diaz trilogy fight sell more in your eyes at this moment. Let us know. But until then, I guess this is a 2-episode week, correct, Dom?
Right, yeah.
So Friday we'll be back with another recap.
We got Bellator back. We got a title fight.
Yeah, so we're gonna have a more diverse episode on Friday. Not only UFC, but also some Bellator, and we'll talk about anything else relevant going on. But until then, Dominic, tell the good people where they can find you on social media.
You can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, at dslee14. And you can, of course, more importantly, find the podcast on Twitter, on Instagram, at BAJ_MMA podcast.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ntbaker_. If you go to my bio on either of those, there's a link to the link tree. It has all the platforms that the podcast is on, along with social media platforms. So you can find us anywhere and everywhere.
Ooh, yes.
That link tree. But that's it. We're out. And we're going to see y'all on Friday.